like $100.
Now,
Ooh, breathe.
okay. I think we're all set. Cool. Andre, welcome back. Here we are again. Hello, everybody.
We're back.
Yeah, I'm Steven. This is Andre Norman. How to have difficult conversations about race, talking about the current moment, current world, what's happening in the United States, what's happening with racial justice and movements for Black lives and equality and all sorts of things. What's going on with you this week, Andre?
What's going on with me this week? I've actually had a conversation with Google. I have a
Oh
conversation
yeah.
coming up with Facebook. I'm having a conversation with two other companies, one in America, one in Canada. I mean, they're looking to find out some of the companies, what are the best ways to approach this where it makes sense for all sides. That they want to have social
Awesome.
impact and not giving the social pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. What have you been telling them? What have you been thinking about with respect to guiding them?
The things we've been talking about, what is the ultimate win? We can discuss the short-term emotional pieces, which are important and not to be negated. But then is what does it look like at the end of this? We focus simply on the starting block that will never finish the race. What does a win look like? What does better look like? What does success look
Mhm.
like? Is that a better school system? Is that a better criminal justice system? Is that a better policing system? I mean, better entrepreneurship system, lending system. So depending on the
Mm.
agency or the company, they can have impact in different spaces. So some places and spaces are great with education. Some are great with technology. Some are great with boots on the ground.
Mm.
So I try to get them to
Mm.
stay in their space where it's natural and it's easy for them versus trying to just do something because it needs to be done. You know what Dr. Ben says, willpower doesn't work.
Mm.
So I try to keep them in
Mm.
their own wheelhouse, and everybody from their own space can be helpful. You don't have to cross over into another space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In my world in behavior design, we say that motivation is not reliable. So that you may have a lot of motivation to do something amazing right now, and maybe we can take one-time behaviors that are, helpful, but as far as sustainable engagement, you got to have something that is relatively easy to do so that you can keep on doing it. And yeah, for these companies, if they have, certain expertise, certain domains where they have more traction and more ability, then they'll probably be able to engage for the longer term there.
And then around verbiage, I support and encourage them to embrace the banner of Black equality, not so much as a
Hmm.
given
Hmm.
movement. Like I have nothing against Black Lives Matter, but you can't fund Black Lives Matter because it's just too many pieces, and there's no
Mm.
one set direction. That's like the rallying call, but somebody has to call a play. Somebody has to make a law. So we can root from the stands. It's kind of what Black Lives Matter is. That's the crowd. That's the audience
Hmm.
screaming,
Hmm.
win, win, win. But somebody on the field has to call a play and put something in motion to actually score the touchdown that wins the game. The crowd cheering
Hmm.
never wins the game.
Mm.
It's the
Right.
people on the field that win the game. So Black equality are the laws, the lawmakers, the end results. Whereas Black Lives Matter are the people in the stands saying, you got to hear us, pay us attention, miss the free throw, or whatever the thing is. So I try to direct them to Black equality versus just, hey, getting stuck on the banner of the latest trending word, Black Lives Matter.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I think there's parallels between those larger organizations and individuals. I'm curious, uh, when you're working with them, are they talking mostly about donating to support causes, or are they talking about sort of building out sort of internal divisions, units, allocating people power towards, trying to accomplish a specific outcome?
There's a range of things. There's one company that wants to do diversity training. They want Black people in senior positions. So they're like, how do we get Black
Mm.
people in senior positions? The first thing you don't do is quotas. I'm saying we want to
Hmm.
be, I definitely want to see Black people in leadership positions. It's better for the company, it's better for the country, it's better for mentors, whatever you want to call it, role models. But how do you do that if it's hiring 3 black people tomorrow, it's going to take your whole company and shift the culture to like they skipped over us. They don't care about us being the white folks. Then you have infighting. Then you have chaos. Then the company closes. Did it do what you wanted it to do? So how do you find those black people? Not just grab the first 3 black people that you think are credible, but get them ready so they can have success. Oftentimes, we just get people and stick them in slots and hope that they win and try to coach them from the spot. Let's prepare people. I'm not saying wait, but let's make sure these people are prepared and ready. There are tons. There is no limit to qualified black applicants for any position. If we can hold the presidency for 8 years, there's no other job in this country that we can't hold. So we've demonstrated that we can maintain the highest office in the world. There are great candidates for positions. Don't grab the wrong candidate. And that's because if you grab the wrong candidate, you skip over somebody for someone that's not ready, they botch the ball, and then the world's saying, look, this is it. Get training programs for them. For the blacks who aren't ready, it's called training programs. For the blacks who are ready, it's called give them the ball. But make the distinction.
And I think
don't grab black people and hope for the best.
Yeah. And I think an effort in recruitment, even at the sort of introductory levels into a company, it can make a huge difference where you put your recruitment efforts. There may be, thousands of excellent qualified black applicants, but if you're not making an effort to find them where they're at, they may not know about you, you may not know about them. And I think making that connection is an important part of the pipeline.
Some of it's just people just don't feel comfortable, or they feel comfortable with what they know. Let's go to the NFL, the National Football League. Roger Goodell runs a fabulous league. There's no black leadership, or very little. You have tons of black players, There's no shortage of black players. And if you look at the coaching ranks of the NFL, I would dare to say upwards of 70% of the current coaches used to be players. And let's look at the GMs and all the senior front office people. I would dare to say 60 to 70% of those people used to be players. So why does the white player come off the field, go into the coaching ranks, then go into the front office, and not the black player? So I was watching something the other day, and they said Dak Prescott from Dallas Cowboys versus Tony Romo from the Dallas Cowboys. They had no problem giving Tony Romo millions and millions of dollars. He never won anything. Now you got Dak Prescott, who's not won much either, but he's like, okay, do we pay him? And one of the sports commentators said, Dak's not marketable. What does that mean? Tony Romo is marketable and Dak's not. And again, you have a large percentage of white folks in the country, and it's easier to sell a white athlete than a black athlete. That's just math. But just say that. Don't say he's not marketable. Just say he's marketable to a smaller demographic. It's different than he's not marketable. I'm cool with he's not marketable or as marketable as Tony Romo, but don't say he's not marketable because you just totally discouraged him. But the NFL does a horrible job with the Rooney Rule, as they call it, that we have to interview black candidates. Does nothing. At the end of the day, if you look at their roles, the senior leadership, the ownership, and the coaching ranks are predominantly white. That's just facts. Yeah. And you go to college sports, D1
as it goes
sports,
in many organizations.
Who plays D1 basketball? Black kids. Who's D1 coaches? White guys. Yeah. You're telling me in all the history of all the NBA players and so forth and assistant coaches in the world, you have like 80. I'm going to say at least 80% of the major college programs have black athletes in basketball, but it's not 80% black coaches. Now, I personally love Rick Pitino. Yeah, you saying, but I love a lot of coaches. But you can't tell me there aren't qualified black coaches. But what happens is, can we sell them to our alma maters? Can we sell them to our alumni? Now it's a wonderful world in America. There was a time black people couldn't walk on the campus of Alabama. They couldn't walk on the campus of UTexas. And those people during that era are well and alive. When Jim Brown played, it was a segregated sport where black folks couldn't score touchdowns in Texas, and black folks couldn't do this, and they couldn't stay in the same hotel. So if Jim Brown is still here, the people who lived in his era are still here. So there's some alumni of these universities that liked it when it was like a white person's dominated sport, and there were rules. So they're not supporting black athletes. It's just a fact. I watched the Fab Five special. I'm a Fab Five fan. And they were getting hate mail. It never dawned on me that you would hate the Fab Five. But if you're a white alma mater, an alum, and you're looking at these 5 black guys who look nothing like you, act nothing like you, yeah, you don't like that. You're not doing it the way I did it. So there are qualified black people, but like the NFL and college sports, you have to want them. From this is a Roger Goodell thing. From his perspective, it starts with leadership.
Yeah. There were a couple things in the news this week. One of them is the COVID outbreak at San Quentin, and I thought, in case you wanted to share any of your views on that, since I know you have a lot of work experience in prisons, and yeah, it's this tragic situation. For people who haven't heard, 1/3 of inmates are now testing positive in San Quentin. There's been 7 COVID deaths, and so that's about over 1,000 inmates now have COVID, and it's spreading quickly. And yeah, so I'm just wondering, from your perspective, why that might be the case. Like, what sort of structural factors make that happen? What are the conditions like inside these prisons that make this happen?
First, I spent 14 years in state and federal prison as a prisoner, as an adult. I spent a few years going in and out of juvie and going in and out of court the whole time. I've been home for 20 and a half years. And of those 20 and a half years, I've been going in and out of prisons around this country. California, Texas, Arkansas, Massachusetts. I've been in prisons all over the place. I don't need to go to a specific prison like San Quentin to know what the problem is. They're not built as health facilities. The health facilities at any prison in this country is going to be subpar. It's just that. It wasn't built for, you go to educational spaces, they're going to be horrible. You go to the healthcare spaces, they're going to be horrible. Yeah. And even though you have public prisons like a San Quentin, I can almost guarantee you they subcontract out the medical. State workers don't run the medical. I'd bet money. Most state prisons have subcontracted the medical. They've subcontracted a lot of things. Medical was the first to go because of cost. It costs a lot of money to keep a lot of people healthy and alive in prison. So the state delegated it to a cost-saving agency or agencies to manage that. So first off, you have probably the prison I work with, 2,000 people in a condensed space. Some 2, 3, 4 in a cell. And if you have a dorm, you might have 100 guys with bunk beds in one room. And one guy got it, all guys got it. So can you look up to see when San Quentin was built? I'm guaranteeing you San Quentin was built in the 60s, if not before. So you're talking about a building that is easily antiquated in the sense of modern technology. It was built at a time where health and hygiene wasn't the premise of the building. The building was built to punish people.
Opened 1852, actually. I don't know about the main buildings now, but
1852. Yeah, they had health concerns was high back then. They didn't make Clorox back then. Bleach wasn't even invented yet. So there was no Fabuloso, no Clorox, no Pine Sol. So the building itself to just maintain is next to impossible. And then the healthcare system, you're talking about in California alone, over 100,000 inmates. You got probably like closer to 150,000 inmates in the DOC of California. Now, Ralph Diaz, who runs the state and all his corrections, he's like the Secretary of State in that space. Great guy. But he has 150,000 people who are subject to get sick at a whim, and once it comes in, it's gone. It just shoots out. So it's almost impossible. Unless you're going to let the inmates run the facilities, and that's not going to happen. You have prison staff who go home every day. Inmates aren't going anyplace. So the only way you get sick is if the staff brings it in. So how do you stop your staff from bringing it in? You can't.
And I think in this case, it was transfers from other prisons that brought it in because they were
Who
trying
engaged
to.
with a staff? I'll tell you this: in South
Hmm.
Carolina,
Hmm.
Director Brian Sterling, one thing he did to help, there's been cases in South Carolina, but one thing that's cut down on a spread is no transfers, unless it's like an immediate
Hmm.
crisis emergency. Wherever you are, you stay. They're not moving people facility to
Hmm.
facility. If you're in prison X, you're in prison X for the foreseeable future. Prison, hey, it's my
Yeah.
time for transfer. No, it's not. They're not moving people unless it's a crisis or emergency. I don't know how they
Yeah.
did it in California. I can't say what they should or shouldn't be doing, but unless the staff, if you're in prison and you've been in prison for more than 6 months, the only way you get COVID if a staff gives it to you. They shut visits down.
Yeah.
Visits have been shut. So the only place you can get it is from staff. And the baseline, prisons are not really medical facilities. There's some of the toughest medical places, the places to do medicine or practice medicine. So not siding with the DOC is just a tough place to try to do medicine. Is too many people, not enough stuff. Then you throw the security on top of it, and then you got a cost saving agency running the thing. Is not going to go well.
Yeah.
In most
Yeah.
instances,
A profit seeking agency.
profit seeking agency, I mean, it's just not going to go well. Take the money part out. You got 150,000 people who could get sick. You can't see that many people. You just
Hmm.
can't see that many. You can't provide services to that many people in a pandemic. In a normal scenario, they're overwhelmed. In a pandemic, is forget about it. They
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
can't
So it's
handle the magnitude of the numbers. Then
right.
you throw security
Yeah.
on top of it, and it just quadruples. Corrections thinking, in most instances, is circle the wagons, protect the shield. That's corrections thinking. In, Inmates are the enemy, families and community are enemy. So the things that you need to make this go well go against the basic corrections thinking, where it's us versus them. When I was a prisoner, I
Hmm.
had the same thought, us versus them. So now my mother who supports me, my relatives who support me are against the DOC. And DOC has to protect itself. And it's all this back and forth. The thing you need during the pandemic is communication, honesty, transparency. That's the opposite of corrections life on both sides. It's
Yeah.
the complete opposite of how the
Yeah.
world exists in the corrections space.
Hmm.
So there's no honesty, there's no transparency, and there's no collaboration. Inmates don't collaborate with police. It's like against the rules. And the police don't collaborate with the
Yeah.
inmates. It's against their rules. So it's just I would not want to be locked up in 2020 with COVID, because everything your
Yeah.
whole life is hinged to the way they do their business. And again, you have correctional staff, not medical staff. It's not going to go well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's been the latest travesty on our side of the country over
Our
here.
president can't decide if he's going to wear a mask or not.
Hmm. Yeah. And it all
One day,
trickles
the
down
vice
from
president
there.
has it on, the president doesn't. I mean, did he have it on during the Mount Rushmore event? I didn't actually watch it.
I don't think so. I didn't see
I
any
don't.
pictures of that.
So if I'm a correctional staff and I'm in a
I think
hierarchy
there's,
of criminal
yeah,
justice,
one or two pictures floating around.
there's a couple. But if I'm a criminal justice
Yeah.
staff person in California or any place else and the commander in chief isn't wearing it, why should I? So there's some who subscribe to,
Yeah.
I'm going to follow Pence, the vice president, I'm going to wear my mask. And some's going to subscribe to Trump, the president says, I'm not going to wear my mask. And it just, for the families of people incarcerated, this goes beyond praying for you. It's all bad. There's no other, you're just at the mercy of people who generally can't help you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really awful. They have been talking about reducing sentences for people who have less than half a year left on their sentence, trying to uncrowd the prisons, allowing, for public health measures. So
And
there's
2.2
some
million
efforts on that,
people,
but
2.2 million people, they can spare a couple.
yeah.
They can let a couple of them go.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
some 2.2 million, you can kick a couple of them out, but even the people you're letting go, are they, listen, I believe everybody deserves a chance at freedom. But let's prepare them. Let's just not throw something, just grab 50 guys, 1,000 guys, and throw them in the street with nothing. So what is prepping? Again, the same thing with the companies who want to hire black people. Let's make sure you get the right black person. Now you just want to go through the prisons and put people out. That's great. Let's not just take 2,000 people and set them on the sidewalk with a bus ticket. Let's give them an honest chance at success.
What does that look like when people are released from prison? What helps give them a decent chance?
Well, considering they're going to have to do a 14, I'm the state of California. I'm the state of anybody. I take one prison and I designate it, clear it out. Clear one building out, clear one whole prison. This is going to be my quarantine before you go home prison. And I'm going to send all the guys I'm going to send home to this prison 2-3 weeks, whatever. They say it's going to be 30 days. Steven, you're going home in 30 days. I'm sending you to quarantine prison to make sure you ain't sick. And during that 30 days, I'm going to give you a crash course on how to stay the hell out of jail. That's the best I can. Since we've been here, that hasn't been my goal. Maybe it's been my goal. Maybe they make it to the GED class or not. But for these next 30 days, you're going to get the most intense training you've ever gotten. And it has to be collaborative. I'm going to provide the information as a DOC. And if you really want to go home in 30 days, you're going to do the testing on your side. You can't come and say, I'm going home. No, you're not. If you don't do this crash course, you can stay because you're just going to go home and fail. So the least that they can do is give you a 30-day crash course on how to stay free. Minimum. And in that 30 days, help them set up for their driver's license, help them set up for the state ID, help them set up for whatever kind of government assistance they're going to get, help them set up for housing, help them set up for their probation. Are they getting a bracelet? I mean, is anybody out there know them? Do they have drug addictions? We could design a 30-day crash course, and before they go home, and minimally, you come to this prison, you do your quarantine time, and we give you a crash course, and then we get you out of there and keep rotating. Every state could do a variation of that. That's the least you can.
And I bet, that would make a huge difference, and it would really help those guys out. And I bet from the state's perspective, it would probably be cost savings too, just as far as reducing recidivism and
how about this?
Better preparing people.
If you take 10,000 prisoners, and they have over 150,000 in California, so 10,000 is not a big number. The recidivism rate is 70%. We take 10,000 people and just let them go. Okay, prisons aren't as crowded. 7,000 of those people are going to reoffend. How about I tell your mother who's going to get mugged that we did nothing for this guy but throw him in the street? He had no bus pass, he had no ID, he had no place to stay, but we just wanted him out, make it better for everybody else. So it reminds me when I went to school in the first grade and they threw rocks at us. A federal judge said black kids and white kids should go to school to make it better, and Andre's going to get stoned in the process. He's going to get called awful names. He's going to be tormented. Nobody ever checked in with me. So I'm thinking of the person who's going to get robbed, murdered, whatever's going to happen to that person. I don't care what, Andre, how you going to not believe in your people? 70% of people reoffend. Those are numbers Andre made up. Let's give those 70% a real chance. Let's give their victims a real chance. Let's take that 70 down to like 20 or something. Because 70%, that's 7,000 people who will be victimized if we don't do something to help this person not victimize them. They don't deserve that. I don't want my mother mugged. I don't want my sister shot. I don't want nobody hurting my family just to make the prison system better. No. If you get a guy a legitimate shot, I'd feel better. If you just take him and throw out the doors, you know what's going to happen because it's been happening for the last 20 years. So
and I know you run your program. Are you focused on those sorts of things in your program too?
Our program is based on violence behind the walls. So I have a lot of influencers, leaders, strong people in that regard. And most of them aren't going home. They don't qualify for get kicked out early. This doesn't get kicked out of jail early crowd. A lot of these guys have life plus 40, double life, 50 years, 80 years. So my guys don't really qualify for the go home early status. So we focus on them same principles, but based on the fact that they're going to stay in prison. So that they don't offend and they don't hurt and they don't damage other people while they're inside.
Yeah, it's relevant in both directions. All right. So I wanted to jump to a slightly different topic. So this past week, I got this email list up and running, and I've been putting the links in these videos for anybody who's watching. And it's a place where I can share our work, our videos, and other things that come up from other people on the list or things that I find around the internet. And some of the questions have come in from people on that list. Um,
Okay.
and so I thought maybe you might be able to take a crack at a couple of these. So one of them is um, people kind of like struggling emotionally, internally with trying trying to find, I guess, the right balance between being assertive and advocating and speaking the truth about what's happening, and rocking the boat socially. Putting people off, people in their families, in their friend circles, people who, for whatever reason aren't right where they are. Maybe they're a little more this way or a little more that way. What do you have to say about that process of coming to terms with how to, disagree with people effectively, while at the same time promoting the cause that's important?
The best analogy I can give is, let's just say all these people are married. When you choose your
Hmm.
spouse, I guarantee you that somebody in your family didn't like them. I can assure you, there was
Yeah.
somebody in your family that did not like your spouse or your choice of spouse. And when you come around, they weren't trying to hear nothing about her or him. They weren't really, really friendly or open to them, but you still married them. You know why? They were good for you. And your stance was, they'll come around or they won't, but I'm going to stop my family. You're not going to let a
Mm.
cousin, an uncle, or aunt, or even a mom stop you from marrying the person you love and having a family. Thousands, if not
Mm.
hundreds of thousands of the dreaded mother-in-law scenario exist. And if it was up to every mother-in-law, there would be no wives because nobody's good enough for their boy. And they would run every potential wife off who knows when. So now that you're talking about social justice, there's going to be a contingent of your friends and family that don't want to have that conversation. And they don't think you should be in that conversation. Like they didn't think you should have been in that relationship. And you have to have the moral principle to say, I'm going to stand on what I believe. I'm going to live my life. And if you don't agree with my wife and or my stance, I can still love you. You're just not invited to the wedding. I can still love you. I'm not going to invite you to the rally. That's all. I mean, so you don't have to force it down people's throats. I'm saying
Yeah.
it's just a fact. The same way I dealt with it, everybody else has to deal with it. But we don't need you to be a Trump. You didn't run up and down the streets of California and announcing your wife. You weren't like doing like tying stuff, putting up billboards. And you're just like, hey, this is a woman I love. I'm going to have my family with her. This is what it is. And that's that. And her past, I can tell you, most people, when they get married, the virgin concept went out like 40 years ago. So there's somebody out there that I dated prior, that my wife dated prior, and they pop their heads up. Oh, I got all this dirty information. Go away. Them days are over, brother. It's over. So you can't bring the past into the future. Everybody has a past. Let the past go. Deal with what is. And for those who aren't ready, they don't have to be ready. But you know something? I've seen a lot of biracial kids, and the parents would hate the other side. So the black parent would like the white person, the white parents would like the black person. It's all animosity and drama until the grandkid shows up. Changes the dynamic. I've yet to see a
Yeah.
racist, and racists on either side hate their grandkid. They might hate the son-in-law, they might hate the daughter-in-law, but they don't hate the grandkid. Because, see, the in-law is not their blood. The in-law is optional. But the grandchild is your blood. That's your lineage. So it changes the dynamic.
Yeah.
I don't have to like her. She'll never be my blood. She'll never be my family. You can't make her be my family. But your child just had a child. That's your family. I've watched more biracial babies change racist parents, both black and white, into better people. So take your stand, live your truth, and let the same way I did it with family, you have to do it with this. This isn't drag people over the line. They'll come when they're ready. So for those who are struggling with, how do I bring this to them? The same way you tell your parents you're dating a black guy or you're dating a white girl, Saying, hey, listen, I support black equality. What are you talking about? Same conversation. And why are you doing that?
Yeah, yeah.
Saying, what about us? How you making us look? It's the same conversation that I'm dating interracially. How you making us look? What is this about? God forbid you tell me you're gay. No, it's the same thing. You can't be gay. You're mistaken. How is it going to affect us? I've seen so many parents turn their back on their kids who are gay, not because of the kid, but how they feel. They don't want to be socially ostracized or stigmatized by their kids' actions. So here we go again. Your kid is taking
Interesting.
a
Yeah.
stand. Let's not be, you're going to get some ostracization, some pullback, and some push away because it makes them feel uncomfortable. It's not about right or wrong. It just it's their uncomfortability. And that's the whole concept of our podcast, having uncomfortable conversations. So know it or not, the parents are going home, and at night when they're saying, I can't stand this, but the fact that you're their child and you're doing it makes them consider it and have to pay attention. So just hold fast and know that you're witnessing not just to the general public, but you're witnessing to your family. Because otherwise they wouldn't hear it from anybody else. Let's say my dad. Nobody can go to my dad and have this conversation at all. He just doesn't like white people, say. But now his son is supporting this cause. It's going to make him be in the conversation that he could have avoided 99 out of 99 times. He can't avoid it because I'm in it. So stay in fast and just know that your presence might be the biggest impact with your family and your love circle, more so than the larger community, which is super important.
Yeah, and I like what you said. You can still love them. You just don't have to invite them to the wedding. And I think that still love them piece, that's something you can do at the same time. You can still love them, show up for them, and you can also make it clear what you stand for. And hopefully, between those two things combined, that can sort of soften them up a little bit and bring them along over time, gradually.
Would you go to Thanksgiving dinner without your wife at your parents' house?
No.
Here it is. Like, you just got to accept my choice. This is how I'm going to live. This ain't hurting anybody. You're not out doing evil stuff. I picked a lovely lady. She's good to me. I'm good to her. This works for me. I know you want to marry that one down the street, but that's not going to happen. This is where I'm at. And it'll soften up over time.
Yeah. It's a good analogy. I'm glad you shared that. Yeah. So another question, maybe it could be our last one if you got to roll a little bit, but okay. So use of social media, we've talked a little bit about this before, but there's these terms, sort of performative activism or virtue signaling, where it's sort of superficial or ineffective engagement on social justice causes that exists mostly for the purpose of making you look good rather than actually contributing to the cause. And I've thought a lot about this, and I've heard from other people on this list too, like how to use social media to actually support leaders and organizations and communities that you want to support, without falling into this situation of just doing it to look good, or or I guess people are really worried about being accused of just doing it to look good, right? People think it's inauthentic or insincere or ineffective. I don't know if you've thought much about that, but I'd be curious to hear what you think about how to engage on social media in a way that's truly effective, and help people overcome that barrier of being like, I'm not just performing, this is something I truly care about and I want to create effective change.
The first thing is, you don't owe anybody beyond yourself an explanation about what and why you're doing it. That's the first thing. If you're a white person and you decide you want to support this initiative or this movement or this cause, do it. And if people are like, oh, you're inauthentic, okay, no problem. You're entitled to believe that. A racist, I told you I have no problem with racists. I have no problem with hard-headed people either. If I'm not going to run around all day and try to prove to you that I care about this cause, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to prove I care by what I do. You watch what I do, not what I say. I can say via post anything. Watch what I'm doing. Am I engaging? Am I trying to be educated? Am I trying to enlighten myself? Am I participating? Am I joining the conversation? Those things will proof out in time. When I changed my life from bad to good, nobody believed me. Dre's still a criminal. Dre's still a bad guy. And that's what they said in February 1991. Last week, he was robbing people. Then it was last month. Then it was last year. Then it was 5 years ago. Now it's 25 years ago. Now it's 28 years ago. And there are still some people who think I'm a bad guy. He's just waiting for the right opportunity. But in that person, God bless him. Believe me, they exist. But the baseline is, if you're doing the right thing, time will prove you out. That's it. If I'd have gave in to the majority of people who said, I don't believe Andre is really true about this. And so I don't need you to believe me. This is not a popularity contest where I need you to vote me into a good space. I changed my lifestyle. I changed my attitude. I'm 28 years in, but the first 2 years I was questionable. The next 10, there's still some people who will just say, well, because I've been locked up at least once, I'm questionable. So you might have had racist thoughts and made some racist comments, participated in racist jokes, or even blocked some people, or just stood quiet while it happened. I used to rob people. I used to beat people up. I used to do a lot of bad stuff too. I let it go and I changed. I don't go around announcing to people what I used to do. I don't come out every time I meet somebody and say, you know something? I used to beat up folks. I used to rob. That's not my opening line. This is what I do now. I save lives. Now, the truth is, I used to hurt people. That's not my conversational piece. So if you want to live in 1991, get in the time machine. I'm in 2020. So for those people who have decided today that this is their day to turn their life, it's going to take some walking before the world witnesses you. But you do not have to make it. I don't walk around with a banner. I'm a Christian. I got saved June 12th, 1999 at 7 p.m. by Father Martin from St. Bidlow's in Missouri. I got baptized January 4th, 2000. I don't have a banner. I don't wear crosses. There's no tattoos. I don't walk around with a Bible strapped to my back. That's my personal business. And if you believe it or not, I don't care. I'm not here to run around like I got to carry my cross physically up and down the street every day. I live my life every day the way I want to live my life. And I try my best to represent that in which I say I represent. You can catch me on a day where I don't look Christian-like. There's been a few conversations I've had that didn't sound Christ-like, but that's part of being a human. So every conversation you have shouldn't be about pro-Black stances, Black equality, save the poor people, let's be fair. I'm going to dinner tonight. And at dinner tonight, I am not talking about Black Lives Matter. Just for the record. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to dinner, and I'm going to be having dinner, and I'm going to be talking about probably everything but Black Lives Matter. So I'm not obligated to do this 24 hours. I support it. I'm in it. I'm down. Put the fist up. But I'm going to dinner. And if somebody comes to me at dinner and is like, hey, Dre, what's up with Black Lives Matter? Dude, I'm at dinner. I'm at dinner, bro. I'm eating. I'm having a conversation. I have, and I'm allowed to have, a life beyond the movement. And so did everybody else. This shouldn't be a 24-hour all-consuming thing, because then it becomes too much.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that, because I've been thinking about that and trying to encourage others not to be afraid to step in, because there's always going to be somebody who can criticize whatever move you make. There's going to be people who criticize it for going too far or not going far enough. And I think that's been the big change for me, is realizing in this moment that I can't let that uncertainty that, what I'm doing isn't perfect, or it's not, precisely calculated to be just the exact right thing to do, to let that concern hold me back from trying to do something, right? Trying to do a little bit better and do the things that I can do. So I've been trying to encourage people to do that. And I'm glad to hear that from you too.
People got mad at me because I don't go to protest. That's not my thing. Yo, Dre, you didn't go. There was a rally one time here in South Carolina at the State House. They were out there and they were getting on. They were cheering and they were speaking and they were screaming. They were doing their thing. I was on watching TV. And somebody said to me the next day, hey, Dre, man, it was a protest. Did you go? I said, no. What you mean you didn't go? You supposed to be for the movement. They had a list of stuff for me to do. I said, bro, I don't take my daily agenda from people outside of my house. I got one person who gives me my daily agenda. That's it. Everybody else has to send her email and ask her to get on my agenda. Nobody plans my day for me. Nobody decides my steps for me. I'm saying, other than the people I've designated to do that. So you can't say, Andre, you need to be doing this, or you need to, man, listen, you go do it. If that's how you feel about it, you go do it. That's my belief. Don't dictate my day. Don't tell
Yeah.
me how to stand up. Don't tell me how to speak out. Don't tell me what to speak and what to say. I don't do Simon Says. I
Yeah.
definitely do Pinocchio. Get the strings out my back. Andre Norman doesn't go to protest. Now, if you ask me to come speak at a protest and say, Dre, we're going to have you go speak at 10:25, I'll show up. Me in the crowd holding the sign, we ain't going to see that. That ain't my thing.
Yeah. Yeah. We all have our different ways of engaging. And I think I've also been saying that they're all important,
Definitely.
right? We need people to write articles, and we need people to organize protests, and we need people to, you know, badger legislators, and all these pieces need to happen. And if we find the pieces that we're good at and we can do sustainably, we'll probably do much better for the movement than if we're trying to force ourselves into something that doesn't fit well.
100%. I mean, do what you do well and do that for the movement.
Mm-hmm.
Don't bring what you don't do well to the movement. That's we don't need what you don't do well. We need the best of the best.
Yeah.
I'm just
Wow.
gonna do it because
Uh,
I feel pressure.
so before we wrap up, anything else on your mind this week? Anything else you want to share?
Man, I mean, just it's been a long week. It's been a great week, and
Yeah.
again, change comes in time, and the time is now. So this isn't something
Mm-hmm.
we put off or we postpone. It's happening now. So we are in the middle of
Mm-hmm.
history, not just with the pandemic, but social change for the first time. So I'm just looking at it and saying, wow, okay, I've watched the movies of the legends and the icons. I remember the times when I watched, and these are the movies of when Martin marched through the street, or Malcolm was speaking at the temple, or whoever. Moses came down the hill with the tablets. This is history. 1,000 years from now, they're going to be talking about this time when the world shut down and black people and white people finally reconciled and came together.
Mm.
That's definitely a
Yeah.
moment in history. It might take 8 months, it might take 18 months, it might take 5 years. But 1,000 years from now, they're gonna look back and say, well, when did France and London become friends? Or when did America and this become friends? And when did they become friends? And there was a time we was at war with Japan. No longer. We look back and say, wow, we fell out with Japan, 1940. Look back, we fell out with Vietnam. And you're saying we fell out with Korea. We fell out with a lot of countries. There was a time when that happened, and there was a time when repair came. There was a time when
Mm-hmm.
America,
Mm-hmm.
white and black, fell out with each other. And then there was a time the repair came. And that's where we are now. We're in repair mode. And once the repair is done, and we didn't instantaneously become best friends with Japan overnight. You know what I'm saying? Blew up a country, killed a lot of people. We didn't become instantaneous friends with Japan, with Korea, or Vietnam overnight. And the same thing with Afghanistan and the Middle East. That's going to repair one day. And when it repairs, it'll be history. And we are in a history-making
Mm-hmm.
moment of white and black civilization in this country, in this time, repairing a long-standing, unnecessary, but justified beef.
Mm.
So
Indeed. Well,
just
I'm really glad to
looking
be
at it.
doing that. Yeah, I'm glad to be doing that with you. It's really a great thing to have these chats, and I'm glad for everybody
Definitely.
else who's watching and engaging with us, because, like you said, this is the moment, and the more that we can show up and bring everybody with us, the better it's going to go, and the sooner it's going to happen.
For the historical record, we are on deck.
Yeah. All right, Andre.
All
Thank you
right, brother.
again. Have a great dinner, great weekend, rest of your evening. Take
Okay.
care. Bye bye.
Bye-bye. How's that?